Coincidence or Sign? The definitive guide to decoding real synchronicities through the power of writing. How many times has the universe tried to send you a message and you missed it simply because you didn't have the tools to understand what it was saying? Has that happened to you? Then hear this. Ignoring the signals that life sends us is one of the main reasons so many of us keep attracting the same kinds of people, the same financial blocks, the same emotional walls, year after year. The patterns repeat. But here's what I want to explore with you today. How do we begin to understand these signals? How do we tell the difference between a genuine sign from the field and a random coincidence? How do we know when life is trying to show us something and we're simply not seeing it? Because when a synchronicity appears, there are really only two things that tend to happen. Either you overlook it because you don't yet have the inner vocabulary to decode the message and translate it into action, or you overlook it because, on some level, you did recognize what needed to change, but it touched something deep in your shadow, your unconscious self, and you chose, once again, to look away and sweep it under the rug. That's exactly what we're going to uncover together. And more than simply uncovering it, I want to give you something practical, a way to interpret the messages life is sending you. Because if you don't learn to read them, you'll keep repeating the same patterns that produce the same painful results in your daily life, in your relationships, in your finances, in your sense of self. I always say this to my students. If you're experiencing negative results in any area of your life, your business isn't flowing, your relationship is struggling, your finances feel stuck, your emotional world feels chaotic, it's because somewhere along the way, decisions were made from an unexamined place. The universe is constantly in conversation with you, constantly showing you doorways to growth. So, why do so many people choose to grow only through pain? When most people first discover synchronicity, they're drawn to the obvious signs, repeated numbers on the clock 11:11, 10:10, 8:08, or the experience of thinking about someone right before they text you. And yes, these are real valid synchronicities, but I want to invite you to look deeper. What if there are far more significant signals happening right under your nose, ones you're walking past every single day? Life is always speaking to us. If we pause long enough to look, the answers are right there. The key is learning the language. The signs are already arriving. Here's what they look like. Let's walk through some of the most common ways synchronicity shows up because recognizing it is the first step to working with it. The most classic example, you're standing in line at the bank or the grocery store and your line isn't moving. The one beside you flows right along, so you switch, and of course, your new line stops dead and the old one starts moving again. Sound familiar? The surface level reading is I'm unlucky. This always happens to me. And that belief becomes a story we tell ourselves, a shadow we project over the symbol life just offered us. We slip into the role of victim, and the synchronicity disappears beneath that narrative. But here's the deeper reading. If life keeps making you wait, and that waiting makes you deeply uncomfortable, could that be pointing to your anxiety? Is there an urgency inside you that says, I shouldn't have to wait? That your time is more valuable than everyone else's? What if the invitation here is to sit with that discomfort, to write through it, to understand where it's rooted? When you do that inner work, when you respond to the signal rather than just resenting the situation, something shifts. The lines stop feeling like obstacles. You've moved to the next level. Another profound synchronicity is the pattern of people you attract. The profiles of the relationships that keep entering your life reveal far more about your inner world than about the people themselves. That classic story of the woman who always ends up with someone who takes advantage of her, or the employee who always lands a difficult boss, everyone around them sees the pattern except the person living it. Every relationship that causes you pain is reflecting a pattern inside you that you haven't yet been willing to see. The other person is simply a mirror. And writing, real, honest, intentional writing, is one of the most powerful ways I know to look clearly into that mirror. Then there's the knowledge that arrives at exactly the right moment. You open a book to a random page and land on a sentence that speaks directly to what you're going through. A near stranger says something in passing that goes straight to your heart. Someone you barely know delivers exactly the insight you needed. This isn't coincidence. This is life placing the exact ingredient in your path at the exact moment you need it. And yes, the repeated hours, the recurring numbers, the person you think of right before they call, these are all real signals, all part of the language. I want us to move past the surface level fascination with them and into genuine understanding. One of my favorite synchronicities is what I call the right words at the right moment. You step into an elevator and the stranger beside you is on a phone call, wrestling with a decision. And it's the exact same decision you've been wrestling with for weeks. They don't even know you're listening. But something in that moment delivers an insight you've been waiting for. Jung described this as an unconscious perception between people connected by the same psychic field. And then there are the trials that press precisely on our weak points. Marcus Aurelius wrote that nothing happens to a person that is not proper to that person. The difficulties of your life are not random. Each challenge lands on the specific place in us that needs to grow. Sometimes it takes an avalanche to make us stop and pay attention. As Jung said, the dragon appears when you approach the portal. Our trials are not punishments, they are the toll booths of the next phase of our becoming. And if you're honest with yourself, when you look back on your hardest seasons, you'll find gratitude there. That was exactly what I needed to become who I am today. Why we miss the signals, and what it really costs us. Here's the honest question: if life is always speaking, if synchronicities are happening all around every single person right now, why do so many people go decades without noticing a single one? There are two layers to that answer. The first is symbolic illiteracy. Most of us were simply never taught to read the language life speaks in. It isn't taught in schools. Families don't pass it down because they never learned it either. And yet, this language is rich, deep, and learnable. And every piece of content you engage with on this subject, every journal entry you write exploring your patterns, every moment of honest reflection is a letter you're adding to your alphabet. Over time, letters become words, words become sentences, and one day you realize you can understand what life has been saying to you for years. The second reason is deeper and harder to look at. Many people see the synchronicity, sense what it's asking of them, and deliberately look away because the message asks for a change they're not yet ready to make. The unconscious pulls a curtain over it. We keep moving as if nothing happened. Jung called this refusal in the face of what reveals itself. The person isn't oblivious, they're not unintelligent. They saw and chose in that moment to unsee. Because here's what accepting synchronicity actually requires: responsibility. If life is intelligent, if every event carries a message addressed to you, then you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You can no longer place the blame on destiny, on other people, on bad luck, on an unjust world. Everything that happens to you becomes part of a conversation in which you are a co author. And that means to change your life, you must change yourself. There is no other door. Four writing practices to start decoding your synchronicities. Today, this is where writing becomes transformational, not decorative, not journaling for the sake of it, but writing as a tool of consciousness. Here are four practices you can begin this week. Practice one: the declaration before you sleep each night. Write or speak aloud a clear, simple declaration of openness. Something like, I am open to perceiving the signals life is sending me. Or, I trust that an intelligence is at work and I am available to listen. The moments before sleep are a portal. Your rational, filtering, doubting mind begins to quiet and your deeper unconscious opens. What you place in that threshold is absorbed at a level far deeper than any affirmation made in the middle of a busy day. Do this for 7 consecutive nights and observe what shifts in your awareness. Practice 2: the question: choose one area of your life where you feel genuinely uncertain, a relationship, a career decision, a conflict you can't resolve. Then write a single specific question, not what should I do with my life, but is this relationship elevating me or draining me? The more precise the question, the clearer the signal that arrives in response. Then stay open, stay alert, and notice what life places in your path over the following days. Practice 3, the record keep a dedicated notebook, physical, handwritten, for 30 days. In it, log the date, the time, what you were thinking or feeling, and what happened. Don't try to interpret yet. Don't judge, just record. The magic appears after the third week. When you read back through your entries, patterns begin to emerge that your memory alone could never have held. The same person appearing 3 times in different contexts, a topic you were thinking about, and someone brought you content about it the very next day. A number, an image, a name that repeats in statistically improbable ways. Your notebook becomes a mirror of the conversation life has been having with you all along. Practice 4, the response. This is the most important one and the one most people skip. When you recognize a signal, act in the direction it's pointing. Reading about synchronicity, discussing it, posting about it, none of that is the same as responding to it. If the repeated experience of waiting in slow lines is pointing to your anxiety, your response is not to simply understand that. Your response is to work on the anxiety, to begin a breathing practice, to explore therapy, to write through your relationship with time and urgency. When you do the work, the signal changes, not because the universe is rewarding you, but because you've passed the level. Like in school, once you learn to read, you don't get more lessons on the alphabet. Life moves the conversation forward to the next thing that needs your attention. Signal by signal, response by response. That's how we climb the school of consciousness. These 4 practices taken seriously will transform your relationship with reality within 3 months. That's not a promise of magic. That's what happens when a person begins to live in conscious dialogue with their own life. And this, my friend, is just the doorway. Every synchronicity that arrives for you is not generic, it's addressed to you specifically, speaking in a language shaped by your unique inner architecture. Learning to read that language is one of the most profound gifts you can give yourself. Your pen is waiting, your life is already speaking. It's time to write back. And if you're ready to stop drifting past the signals and start living an intentional, conscious conversation with your own life, I want to invite you to take the next step with me. Journey 40 Days to Transform Your Life, available now on Amazon, is exactly the companion you need for this work. Over 40 guided days, you'll use the power of intentional writing to decode your patterns, silence the noise of the ego, and align yourself with the life you were always meant to live. Each page is designed not just to be read, but to be lived, one honest, transformative entry at a time. Because real change doesn't happen in a single moment of inspiration. It happens in the daily practice of showing up for yourself, pen in hand, with the courage to look clearly and the willingness to grow. Your 40-day journey starts with one decision. Get your copy of Journey on Amazon today and let the writing begin.